Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, folks. Michael Zuber, one rental at a time. And we are back on Tuesday morning with the Lumberjack Landlord. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing awesome, Mike. Excited for number 3. This one's a good one.
Yeah.
Really good.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about a concept I get asked for. It's actually in my book, One Rental at a Time, which is available on Amazon and Audible. And that is, I tell people to have a goal of getting to 4 rentals. And I actually do that for a couple of reasons. But let's just step back. And when I say get to 4 rentals is life changing, what does that mean to you, Matt?
I think that if you do 4, I think that if you're in your 20s now, that's what I'm looking at, kind of 20s and 30s. If you're in your 20s and your 30s now, you do 4. Well, then by retirement age, whatever the millionaire version of today is, then that's what you are.
Yeah, exactly.
That's real financial freedom, basically spending, by that point, are we living to 90? And you're going to have 25 years where you're not working. Is Social Security still around? Is your 401k still around? Blah, blah, blah. Right. Take it right through the steps. You can still have those assets, or you can sell out of them and live off that money, somewhere else.
Yeah,
for the rest of your life.
Yeah. So all of that is very true. And that's definitely where I'll end up. But for me, it starts with being invited to talk about one rental at a time, right? You write a book, it's well received. You have a lot of units. People want to hear that story. So I was happy to tell it, right? Because I went to real estate meetups 20 years ago and was inspired by the speaker. So I feel like it's my turn to give back. Mm-hmm. And I did that for about a year. And I didn't like the outcome, right? Because you do it, they get excited for you, they clap, they take pictures, they buy your book, blah, blah, blah. But that's not why I do it, right? I do it to motivate, 1, 5, 10 people there to take action. So I kept hearing people, because again, I would mill around and listen. And they would basically say something to the effect of, good for them, mm-hmm. But we can't do it, right? Mm-hmm. Because when you talk about a portfolio that's more than a couple people, it's just too big, right? I can't get there, right? It's just too big. So that was strike 1. I didn't like that because frankly, I felt like a failure because I was trying to motivate it and it was actually demotivating. Then number 2, you and I lived through the last crash. And something that banks did that impacted us substantially was they would only now, because they thought investors were the problem, they would only allow you to have 4 rental properties, right? Remember that?
Mm-hmm. Oh, I do. I remember when they shut it down from 10 to 4.
Yeah. So now it's 10 again. But again, remember, we both lived in the environment of 4. Yep. So again, I kept doing meetups. So I flipped my script right in the middle of that. And I only talked about 4. I would try to get through talks, not even talking about where we like the number we have, right? Because it's my number. I don't like talking about it.
Sure.
So that's where it came from. That's where the whole get to 4 was. Because again, if I could get everybody in that audience to think about 4, it was far more actionable. Because I would always ask by the end of my presentation, the last question I was asked is, who here thinks they can't get to 4? And nobody ever raised their hand. Right now, maybe they were just shy. But again, how many of you watching this think you can't get to 4 over a decade? Right? 4 is a very doable number. So, and so that's why I've held on to 4. So now what I tell people is, you go to 0 to 1, then you go from 1 to 4. And these are properties. I get asked all the time, are you talking about 1 4-plex? No, I'm talking about 4 loans.
That's right.
4 residential loans. And then if you get to 4 and you still like it, you go to 10, but you can absolutely stop at 4. Because why? If you stop at 4, just as you said, Matt, you're going to have options in 20 or 30 years. You could sell them off. You could refi them. You can recycle capital. You can 1031. The world opens up. So again, I stand by the fact that if you get to 4, your life changes. It doesn't change immediately. So stop saying that. But again, if you hold fixed rate debt, cash flow, no alligators, and you just hold that, let your tenants pay it off, the world's your oyster in 20 or 30 years. So I'm really happy with the notion that I'm attached to. Getting the 4 rentals is life-changing.
It is. I mean, I just bought a property I bought his 4th from 38 years ago.
Wow. 38
years ago.
He became 83.
Yep. That was his last one. So in 1978, he became a cop in the town.
Okay.
And it was basically for him right out of school. It was a little bit different to get on the police force then. But he was right out of school on the police force. Within 4 years of being on the force, he bought his first house. And then he bought a second one and a third one. I think it was, and I think I mean, he might have stopped at 3, but I bought his last one. I looked at the original deed that he had. He paid $60,000 for a 5-plex.
Nice.
And
Time.
time is your friend. I paid him 350. And Mike, I was elated to do it.
Yeah.
Elated to pay him 350. And I've since redone the units, refied it, and it was 505. Now that's a win-win, right?
Oh,
he got his exit. He didn't owe anything on it. He gets $350,000 in cash. I put about 30,000 bucks or so, 35,000 bucks into the building at my 350 plus my 35. And boom, now I'm over 500 in value in the building, over 100 a unit. And for him, he's thrilled. For me, I'm thrilled because I told him, I said, I'm not a flipper. I'm going to buy it. I'm going to hold it.
Yeah.
And this was a perfect deal. Mike, this was one that I found on Craigslist. That's how he listed it. And I was the silver medalist when it came to putting deals together. The other guy did it and then he couldn't close. And then I just, every couple of weeks, I would just reach out to him, just, hey, I'm still here. Let me know if anything happens. Yeah. And eventually he sent back my email. He goes, yeah, I don't think this guy's going to close. If you still want it, it's yours for the same price. Done.
Let's go. Yeah. So again, what I want everybody watching this to realize is if you don't have any right now, I would love you to establish a goal of 4. Now, whatever that means for you, 1 a year, 1 every 2 years, shoot, 1 every 3 years. Because I understand that for many of you, the hardest part is going to be the down payment. Yep. I get it. It was for me as well. But if you start living below your means, you get your money right, you make some sacrifices. Because again, what you will see in my book, One Rental at a Time, and talk about all the time on this channel, is our journey includes 15 years of sacrifice. Our life was not easy. We were in the rat race just like everybody else. We were spending 100% of our income. We just made a choice that we were going to get uncomfortable for a decade. And now on the other side of that, I can tell you it was absolutely worth it. There were certainly some dark days and stress and like, did we make the right call? And all our friends have nicer stuff than us, but I think we're doing okay now.
Yeah. I mean, like we always say, people would love to live our lives now. I had no interest in doing it then when I was, buying my wife the weekly treat off the dollar menu at Mickey D's.
I think that is such an awesome example. Yeah. I hope people hear that. Your treat during your growth or your foundation was the dollar menu at McDonald's.
It was. And we would really work hard. I mean, it was like, could we get out of there for like less than $9 between the two of us? That was what we were doing for dinner. And it's just, and it's one of those things that, even with my son now, we have a recycle yard close to us. We'll still take the cans that we have and we'll bring them to a recycle yard because they're like, we get 5 cents in our state. Oh, okay. So we'll still bring them there and do that. And my son will do that. And I want him to remember that because we work hard for our money. But, another thing too, Mike, that I think is really interesting for those folks, if they haven't done it yet, or they're not buying, or they haven't bought one yet, is they're now getting into a world where you can actually get seller concessions.
Yeah.
We just went under contract with one of my students, just went under contract with a building, got a $10,000 seller concession.
Nice.
For closing costs. So now his closing costs are going to be about $5,000
instead of 15. Yeah, the housing slowdown is real. It's not a crash, folks. It's a housing slowdown. But if you can find the inefficiencies, you can find the seller that's just done. I love finding those sellers. I'm just done. Okay, great. Let me be your white knight. But again, most sellers are like, my house is special. I'll just keep it. Great. I don't want to buy from those people. I want to buy from the people that are done. You got to take your shot, write the offer that makes sense. Again, if you're struggling to get to your 4 and you don't have any money and you're doing the work, do the work. Don't, this is a big thing for me, right? Just because you don't have money doesn't mean you don't do the work. You always are doing the work. I was doing the work when I was completely cash poor because I just had to keep going because the market will change on you.
It's the hours of prep, and you won't know it if you're not doing the work. Oh, exactly. Those hours of preparation meet that moment of opportunity where you have the money. And I think the other thing to look at too is all the stuff that Mike and I talk about. So I do flips, Mike does flips. I would tell you, do not do a flip right now.
No.
Do not do a flip right now. Especially if you're a newbie, because I saw newbies in the last, Mike, I almost broke my head shaking yes at the screen when I was watching you and Laura on Sunday. Yeah. I almost broke my head shaking yes going, yep, this is exactly it. Like I saw a couple newbies that were like, I literally had one guy was like, Maybe next time you'll get it. And I was like, oh, oh. And it was a flip property. And I know, and he's still working on it now. And I'm like, hey, better get that one done, bro. Summer season's almost over and it's already declining.
Yeah.
So it's just one of those things where we want to encourage people to do it, but do the right thing. Do it because it's a long-term thing. Flipping, definitely don't have part of your game right now in this market.
Yeah.
I mean, it has to be some pretty unique circumstances that a flip right now makes sense. It really does. Because even the wholesale deals, I don't know if you've seen this, Mike, but the wholesale deals that I'm getting are crap.
Oh, they're the worst I've seen.
They're garbage.
Yeah. And again, if you don't know, we talked to Laura Morby on Sundays, and she's a top 1% agent in the state of Arizona. So big deal. And oh, by the way, she's a husband-wife combo, one of the biggest wholesalers or investors out there. So you need to listen to those interviews, because she's talking about a housing slowdown, like, 15 buyers to 2, the flip staying longer. She's just dropped so many gems over the weekend. So go watch Laura Morby. She has her own playlist, as you do as well. So yeah, again, folks, change your life with Ford. It's a process. Enjoy the process.
Yes.
It's not overnight. It takes at least 60 days to learn your market. In the inefficient market is where you make deals. Again, motivated sellers are like unicorns. Sometimes they're hard to find, but now if you do the work, you're going to find them. And my students are finding them all the time. I get a kick out of our Facebook group where they post them. So how can people find you, be part of your world, Matt?
I always like to say, Mike, success is a journey. It's not a destination. So it's a process. But lumberjacklandlord.com, Lumberjack Landlord on YouTube, and certainly one rental at a time. I'm like Dolby Surround, always available.
There you go. So yes, you are now active in the Facebook group, and we've got to figure out what Saturday you are going to host the 9 a.m. or noon.
We are.
I think they will like that.
I actually look forward to it. I promise you I will do one before summer's out, guaranteed.
There you go, buddy. Take care of yourself. Have a wonderful week.
Thanks, Mike. You too.